My name's Richard. This is We're Not Wizards. And tonight's episode is going to be a slightly different one. It's kind of like, we're going to call it a getting to know you episode. And the reason we're going to be doing that is because I've been speaking on and off for a gentleman by the name of John Reid Denton, who is basically one of the gentlemen that runs a company called Covert Intervention Games. So the idea is we're going to find out a little bit, well, quite a lot about John. Reid to his friends, John to everybody else out there, and hopefully you will, everybody will find out something new and something exciting. Good evening, John, or Reid, or John. I don't know, because you said my friends call me Reid, and people that kind of don't know me call me John. So hopefully we can start off the beginning by, I can call you John at the beginning, and by the end maybe I can call you just Mr. Denton.
Oh, let's not go that far. Thanks, Richard. I appreciate it.
But hello to you. I mean, first of all, thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having us. It's really kind of you.
No, it's always good to speak to somebody new, as he would say. And we're not going to start singing the song from The Sound of Music or anything like that. We're not going to go that far. But it's good to have you on and find out obviously a little bit about yourself, and find out, quite as much as we can about Covert Intervention Games and what you guys are doing and what you're up to. But before we do that, as we say, there's a couple of reasons why we do this. The first reason is that we strongly believe from our hearts that there's not enough podcasts out there about board games. I've checked, done research. I think my iTunes is broken, because I don't know if it's maybe the way I'm spelling board or tabletop, but I'm certainly just getting DIY stuff. The second reason that we do this is because, as we said, it's always nice to learn about something new and make a new friend, as they would say on Sesame Street. So, but no, I mean, starting off, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got into the hobby yourself? From your from your beginnings, and that'd be cool.
Oh, Richard, that's a very good question. I'm glad you asked that. I guess the first way I got into the hobby is when I was about 4 years old. My father bought me my first big container of plastic U.S. Army men, and
all right.
And it actually came in a giant 155 millimeter howitzer round case. It was really awesome. So I had this ammo crate that used to have howitzer rounds just full of Army men, plastic tanks, and everything else. So at 4, I had the little Army men gene installed, I guess you might say. And my dad and I used to spend hours throwing marbles and crap at that stuff, and just having a good time. And for some reason I always won when I was playing my dad, and I don't know how that happened. Yeah. He was really good, So, but that got it started, and and then from there, a few years later, there was a young man named Scott who lived around the corner from me. I grew up in Arkansas. And if you've never been to Arkansas at that time, there wasn't a heck of a lot going on in terms of the game scene back in those days. This was in the mid '80s, I'd say. And okay. Scott played with these little, lead figures that were really interesting. And then later he showed me Space Marines and rhinos and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I discovered Games Workshop. And I may have been one of the few people in all of the state of Arkansas at the time that bought the first Rogue Trader rule book. And from there, I was sold. I was into the hobby. I was learning to paint horribly, of course, but then I got better.
I mean, you have to paint horribly. I mean, that's the rule.
Yeah, yeah. And then from there, we transitioned straight away into bigger and bigger hobby. Later, we tried some more complex games like BattleTech and some of those other games too, and had a ball with those as well. And then eventually, I went into a variety of different job roles and climbed up the corporate ladder for a number of different companies, from GE, and later on the government work and the military itself. I've got 23 years in the U.S. Army
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. So from there, at some point, I had a friend who was kind of a manager there, I'd say, at Games Workshop. And what he did is one day I was telling him I was thinking about leaving the government and going into something else. And he said, well, why don't you interview with us? I said, I was like, Games Workshop? Are you kidding me?
Because, Army, 40K. I mean,
I mean, it was a good. He was a former Marine, and he was a good friend.
Right.
And I trusted him. So I interviewed. I figured, what the heck, I couldn't lose anything, and they made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and so I signed on to Games Workshop for about 3 years as a regional manager and later as a director. And,
really?
Yeah. And in the U.S., it was a great company. For me, some things changed, and so I stepped away from the business, and we transitioned back to government work, and then this opportunity came up, and we started a game company from it. So that kind of my whole hobby.
So pedaling back a bit, I mean, do you have a substantial collection of Games Workshop, or were you one of these? Were you kind of like the kid in the cookie jar that you ended up not wanting to take too much home, or were you the guy that and here is my orc room, and here is my marine room, and
no,
the cupboard has got my dark elves in it, but we don't talk about that.
Yeah, well, that would be in the pleasure room, but that's a whole different story from 50 Shades of Grey.
It's got velour and magic in it, and that's all you need to know.
Well, it smells of rich mahogany. What can I say?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I've got a game room that was pretty sizable. I think I had to move off some of my stuff. I was just had too much stuff, and it was just I wasn't getting enough playtime with it. I still have a sizable force of a variety of different things. I was a huge Gene Stealer fan. I have an original Gene Stealer Cult Army. Before Games Workshop got rid of all the bits, I bought out, I think, pretty much everything left in the Gene Stealer bits bins that were available.
So is this pure? Are you a pure Gene Stealer guy, or did you let the occasional Tyranid kind of sneak in there as well?
I've got a few Tyranids here and there. I think I got some Termagants sitting around here somewhere. But no.
I'm just imagining you kind of like going through your cupboards to say, right, okay, I'm sure we had a spare dishcloth in here, or here something. Oh, look, there's a couple more Gene Stealers.
Yeah, those little buggers get in everywhere. It was like that, yeah. So, and then it was negatively impacting like my living room at one point. So we had to find some better storage solutions, I'll say. And then from there, I was a huge Space Hulk fan a long time ago as well. Loved the 3-minute timer concepts. I mean, there's a lot of good mechanics in Space Hulk from a game development perspective, as well as just from a plain fun around the table perspective. That was huge, so much so, and everybody knew I was such a huge Space Hulk fan that at one point I was deployed to Baghdad with the Army Reserves while I was with Games Workshop.
All right.
And to Games Workshop's credit, they knew I wanted a Space Hulk box set when they first reintroduced it.
Was that what year was that? The 2014 or the...
No, the 2009, 2010
All
one.
right, okay, yeah.
So they actually sent me one while I was in Baghdad. Like, just sent me a copy of it. And there's pictures of me somewhere where I'm like, giggity. I sent it all back. I said thank you so many different ways. Because that was showing, some real good stuff as a company.
Did you play when you were out there then? Did you get a chance? Did you just wait? Well, if I open this up, there's going to be kind of like grit and sand and... Oh,
that wasn't the worry, although the sand is horrible there. The problem was good luck finding super glue in Baghdad. It just wasn't going to happen.
It's a model tip then.
Super glue, primer, plastic glue, you weren't finding it. And if you order it, and we attempted to order it, but like if you have plastic glue or super glue shipped to you, or even paint shipped to you, chances are it's going to be dry as a bone by the time it gets through Kuwait customs and then to you. It's just, forget it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I just
imagine that. It's like, what's happening? Well, we're coming under, there's a bit of a, the natives are getting a bit restless here. We're having to come up with a bit of insurgency and And John over there just can't get glue for love nor money.
Yeah, I mean, wet wipes and super glue. You just can't get enough of them, when you're in the desert.
So that's what you want. Is that what it was almost like? If there was ever a black market, then that's what you're. That's your kind of. That would be your item of choice to take with you.
I think I had to order glue 8 times before I could get anything that was usable.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I take it you still got that set then? Have you still got that Space Hulk set?
Absolutely.
Did you paint it up then, or?
No, I decided after that, like I just did not. At that point, when I got home, I wanted to spend some time, not doing anything for a while. It was a decompression point, So.
All right. Okay.
And then I got rolled into a whole nother set of workflows and everything else. So I was spinning up so much before anything else. But it is on my list at some point. I play all scales, 15 millimeter through 28 millimeter. And I've done a lot of micro armor back in the day as well. So there's plenty out there for scale and choice. I think right now, in terms of models and games available, we're spoiled for choice.
I mean, it sounds like, skirmish and battling as your scene. Do you ever look at anything else in the kind of the tabletop scene? Are you the type of man that would hang around with cardboard, or do you like your minis?
I play, some board games like Settlers of Catan and some of the ones that have multiple levels of thinking and economy. I tend to be a thinker, so things that allow me multiple levels of strategy. And
all right,
Settlers of Catan, of course, is the kind of game you start with friends and end up hating every single other person at the table. So it's just how that game's supposed to be played. So
you're a bit of a Euro fan then? Are you the type of guy that would get, something like Power Grid to the table? Anything where you're having to maybe have kind of like 3 or 4 moves ahead and thinking about your economy and your resources and your workers and stuff like that? Is that kind of like your bag?
Yeah, it's mostly because Candyland really doesn't have much replay value. That's part of it. How many times can I get double orange and be excited?
So you spent some time out. You took a break from it all, and then how did the idea for the company come around? Where what made you think actually? I take it Games Workshop were pretty much interested in having you. You would have been able to go back to them again if you wanted to, I'm guessing.
I don't know that I'd want to go back. It's a different company now. It's not a bad.
Okay.
I still have friends that are there, and they're great people, and they're doing great things. And they but they really did give me a hell of an education in terms of. I was always a business kind of guy, but they really did help me understand how game companies can be successful, or how they can be tripped up on their own grandeur. Smaller companies, they have some case histories and stuff like that they've talked about. They teach you the history of wargaming. I mean, there's a culture there. There's definitely a culture.
Yeah, no, there absolutely is. I mean, obviously a bit of news that came out a little while ago now was the kind of the breakup between Games Workshop and Fantasy Flight.
My opinion is that Fantasy Flight is an excellent game company. Fantasy Flight is also coming out with their own games.
Yeah.
From an outsider's perspective, Fantasy Flight may have just become competition. So,
right.
Because they're making their own miniatures lines now and supporting some of that stuff too. So, it just may have been where they decided it was time to, not feed that beast anymore, or whatever it is they went with.
Yeah. Cool. So going back to yourselves then.
Yeah.
Again, what kind of made you think, actually this is my time. I've got my experience of, I've done the big company thing. I've worked my way up to kind of like the director level. Where are you? What made you think like this is for me? I'm going to start doing something myself.
I apparently have brain damage. Starting a game company is not an easy thing to do. It's a hell of a. I thought it would be hard, but as I've been doing this, it's been it's a very, very much a very difficult task that you have to want to do. If if you're starting out and you think this is going to be fun and we're going to play games all day long, you've already lost in the business side of it. So it's not. There's a lot of very serious, money decisions that have to be made and stuff like that from a game business perspective. I had been percolating inside my head for a few years after I left of some things, but I didn't want to just jump into something. I wanted to find the right opportunity, and I was watching the markets. I was looking at the various different scales that were out there. I was looking at what the game companies were doing. I even did some consulting work for a few different game companies. Some did really well, some not so well, depending on what they did. I know that anytime I was working with them, they tended to do better. The thing I've found is that the game industry is fractured in many different places, depending on which scale or which game system you're in. And when you can see it as a business and you see that there's a fracture and that there's an opportunity to make it easier on the customer or the hobbyist or the gamer or whatever they are, because everybody's hobby's different. Some people just paint, some people build, collect, play games and do it all. Some people just do a few things. When you can make it easier for a person to enjoy that hobby by just taking a couple extra steps to go, in their hobby, to make it easier for them to find what they're looking for and get it set up and ready for their piece of the hobby, you've created an added value. So we saw an opportunity to add a lot of value, and that's what we've leaped on, and we've actually done pretty well so far in terms of working some deals and getting stuff started.
So how long have you been going as a company then? Now?
We're about a year in, and
whoa.
Yeah, but we were really quiet for like the first 6 months. We were just testing stuff out, trying to figure out what's out there. Part of our game systems that we built were stuff I did originally built for Department of Defense on my own, and just for some fun stuff for them to test out and see how it worked. We tried some other different war game systems that were already out there, and we had various successes or failures, teaching, tactics and stuff to the Army and to Department of Defense.
So is that what you were doing? You were actually saying, okay, here's an example of a situation, and you scale that down into kind of what, a system level, a gaming system level, and you teach people kind of tactics based around that?
Kinda, yeah, absolutely. Okay. We can make it that simple. There's if you want to get complicated, there's three.
I'm happy to get complicated. There's this is your night, John.
Oh.
I'm one of the things we like here is, tell us. If people want to be educated, and we're always pride ourselves in letting our guests kind of tell everybody what they want to say. So yeah, let's get complicated.
Oh man, nerdy as we can get. All right, let's jump down this hole.
I'm happy with this.
All right, well, there's 3 levels to war in real life. There's the strategic, there's the operational, and there's the tactical. Mm-hmm. And most other game systems out there are, in terms of war games, are really focusing at the operational and above. Mm-hmm. So if you look at Axis and Allies, that's a very strategic game. If you look at there's what's it called? Flames of War. That actually tends to be a little bit operational. There's always bleed over between some of these different levels of war, so you'll get some tactical as well.
Yeah.
The reality is that there's only a very few companies that are putting together something that's reasonably decent for the tactical level of war. But what's happened is, what we saw is most of those games really get into these crazy detailed requirements and rules mechanics because they weren't able to figure out the math to do in one dice roll what everybody else was doing in 6.
Okay.
So we've statistically, pushed that down to create the same tactical effect, and that is the big goal, is to simplify yet achieve the same results tactically. So when we were using other people's systems, it got bogged down, especially at the tactical level, on all these complicated, action reactions, difficulties with I go, you go turn-based systems, which don't allow for what is the fluidity of tactical combat. There's all sorts of things that just were crazy out there. And we worked on a system that we originally called Mil-Spec Bogey, which is one of the reasons that we called it that. It's one of the reasons we have the bogey icon as our mascot to this day.
Right, okay. Okay.
And so it's not just a logo; it's a mascot, as we like to joke about it. So from there, we were able to really create something pretty spectacular from a DoD perspective, or a military, fun training exercise perspective. It was great. It was fantastic. From a tabletop gamer's perspective, it's missing a little something from the gamer side.
Yeah.
The heroism of your captain needs to be just a little bit more heroic. So we added a couple more layers to that, and as we were developing it, we were trying to figure out, what do we do for the line to support this, who's got the best quality and the best depth, because the other factor for us as a company is, if you don't have the best quality out there, everyone else is going to get your business. So not us. So and the hobbyists truly appreciate the best quality over anything else. No one wants ugly miniatures on the table. It's part of the spectacle of the battlefield, right?
No. Well, the Space Hulk, Space Hulk 2014.
Those miniatures are breathtaking, aren't they?
They're stunning.
Absolutely.
It's the point. It's the individuality of the miniatures. It's not something that looks like you have pressed 14 units and just stuck it out there. You've got the. You would just sit and look at them. I remember opening the box, and the box is heavy because the cardboard in there is the thickness of bread.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
When you're putting these tiles down, you feel like you're laying like paving slab down. You got to wear gloves when you put them on the table, otherwise you're going to get your fingers trapped under these tabs. But
absolutely.
The minis themselves, though, it makes for a memorable game, and I think we'll go on to this, but the Kickstarter seems to be, minis seem to win the day for a lot of campaigns where the mechanics maybe are a bit higgledy-piggledy, they're not maybe 100% there, and then they say, but look at the minis, and everybody goes, oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of, that's where you get the backing up.
Absolutely, you nailed it. It's about the minis. So we looked around, and we were kind of excited about where were we going to find, a sculptor who could produce this at the level of detail we needed, because we had two problems. At 28 millimeter, it's just too big. That's just too big. You can't fit, as I like to make jokes about a lot of things for my competitors' scales. Not to make fun of my competitors, because I play in all those scales too. I even probably play their games.
Yeah.
But 28 millimeter for a realistic war game, you can't fit a platoon on the table unless you want your team of highly trained killers to hold hands and skip as they're shooting at their enemies. They're just too big. So we had to go down to 20 millimeter. We didn't want to go to 15 millimeter because we didn't want to lose the detail on the models that makes the exciting factor of painting them so fun. So we went to 20 millimeter, and as we were looking around at 20 millimeter, I remembered Elheim and Matt Hingley over at Elheim, and we reached out to Matt, and we talked for a few months to figure out how to make this a win-win, and we made an exclusive manufacturing deal where we're the only other company besides Matt that can manufacture these miniatures. And so we're packaging them just a little differently. Matt still gets all the credit. Matt made these miniatures, and he's working with us to create, any miniatures we request. He'll help us get them out there, so that we can actually offer the comprehensive offering for the games that we create. If you buy a platoon of infantry from us, you will be able to get everything that matches the order of battle for that platoon. And then if you want to upgrade it with additional things that would come from the battalion or company, we'll have those miniatures for you too. That's why we're going a little bit slower on some of our production. I could throw together molds all day long and just put out the same things that everybody else is. Yeah. We want a better quality product. So we've had to slow down a little bit, look at what we're doing, make sure that what we're spending the time making a good solid quality mold with meets or exceeds Matt's already pretty good quality level. And then we've put together already the U.S. Army platoon deal, for example. And then special note for your listeners is the modern Russian army is coming next. So.
Oh, right, okay. So how long does it take from somebody deciding they want to make a particular model? How long does it take to sculpt something, to get something together? Are you a real stickler for the detail that's going into it? do you have, how does that kind of work?
We are a stickler for detail, but we're not. We also understand the limits of what you can show on a model. So there are some things that we're WYSIWYG about, and there are some things that we don't sweat. Like, where is the antenna actually located? We may have to adjust that in order to get our tank models produced to the reasonable expectation of a detail level. We just adjust the antenna slightly to the right or to the left to meet molding requirements or something like that. And that's just to get the model in the hands of the people with the detail level that they deserve, but it's not enough that actually changes how it works on the tabletop or that it really impacts the look of the model either. However, if we say that a model's carrying an RPG, he better have an RPG in his hands somewhere or on his body strapped to him. So, that's just how it works here. So
no, there's nothing worse than somebody playing with particular rules and then saying, well, he's about to get out his shotgun and do that instead. And it's like, well, where is his shotgun? He's holding a shovel there.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's just gonna have to pretend he's actually holding a shotgun.
Or you run around thinking you're gonna shoot the guy in the face with a pistol, and turns out his shovel's a shotgun. You just really ruined your own day that day. Yeah, I hate it when that happens. I hate it. Yeah.
But you see, started digging a hole. Oh no, it's actually a shotgun. All right, okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a shovel. That's no fair. Or you're going to take your Apache over and really just smoke the guy with a 20mm cannon. It turns out that shovel's a stinger.
And it turns out that Apache's actually a tent.
Yeah, I mean,
so you're not getting anywhere at all with.
What do you mean that can of Quaker oatmeal is actually a tank? That's no cool. Yeah.
Well, he did roll 2d8s, so
yeah, exactly.
He kind of gets his way. So with this, you're putting the gaming systems together with the miniatures at the same time, then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And right now, the toughest thing for us is making sure that either A, we have the miniatures that we need for it, or B, that we have the rules for the miniatures we already have. So it's kind of like, because we're starting off with both, two things ready to go already. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like this double whammy that makes it actually a bigger pie to eat at once. If you understand what I'm saying. So
no. I mean, you can't. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of going back to Bill and Ted, isn't it? You can't have a Righteous video if you don't have Eddie Van Halen on guitar.
You read my mind. You got to have that virtuoso there. And excitedly, it's been an exciting trip for us to overcome these obstacles and learning as a game company, a small plucky game company, as I like to call us. It's been exciting for these obstacles to be overcome. We've got a great team of volunteers who've been helping us with rules development. They're all great guys. A lot of them former military or former law enforcement. They get it intrinsically what we're doing here. We've got a great group of people from my network of former GW guys who are all over the industry still today, are very much interested in the hobby, that are helping us out. We've got just tons of things stacked in our favor, but it's still a lot of obstacles that we have to overcome. From size and scope. When you're putting together something this big, anyone can put together a crappy game, but when you want to put together a good game, there's a lot to it, which we didn't realize until we really embarked on the heavy duty journey that this is.
Well, I think it's the time thing. I mean, we've had a guest on, gentleman by the name of Frank West, and he just ran a really, really successful Kickstarter campaign where he did pretty much, in your money, it would probably be the best part of about $350,000. Mm-hmm. And he was looking for a budget of about $35,000. Mm-hmm. So he pretty much almost kind of like did, I think he almost about 9 times what his budget was. But his game, The City of Kings, when we talked to him about it, it wasn't just a case that he woke up in January and he had it on the Kickstarter by March. He said, I've actually been working on this for 2 years to kind of get the balance right and get the statistics right and get everything kind of working, and the rules and the gameplay and even the figures down to like what the cover art was going to look like. And he had a lot of planning. I mean, with you with you kind of moving away, being in Games Workshop, where I guess you had the ability to be able to say, okay, I need 15 of these done, could you go ahead and do that, to you being more closer to the coalface, have you noticed as challenges kind of come up which you didn't think were going to come up, that were going to take a lot more time?
I would say that in my previous role with Workshop, there were people who handled a good chunk of the things that I just took for granted back then. That just do that stuff, and then all I had to do was go out and handle the team that went out and sold all the stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I'm working side by side with graphic designers, sculptors, traditional artists, 3D imaging specialists. We've got our own in-house manufacturing and prototyping. We've got all sorts of stuff that we're juggling at once here. It's definitely a new and exciting challenge. It's like figuring out the puzzle pieces. And at the same time you're doing all this, you're trying to balance your budget, not overspend, because a lot of companies, they aren't capitalized, and they struggle with that too. And miniatures cost money. Models
cost money.
No.
Yeah.
These things take time. And graphic artists, if you want good art, that costs money. So we try to balance getting the best value for our dollar, but not overspending until we're ready.
Yeah. So you've been a kind of a cautious.
And that has been kind of a struggle at first. We've kind of started to get the hang of it. We've got a lot of room to improve, though. So I think that's the biggest thing for me.
Did you expect to be further along than where you were? Or have you?
Oh gosh!
Has it surprised you where you are?
When I started a year ago, I thought I'd be bringing in millions by now. No, I'm kidding. No.
Hundreds. I thought I'd be bringing in tens.
Yeah.
Are you going to eat that rest of that donut?
Yeah. Yeah. I honestly thought I definitely thought I'd be in a different situation. However, the humbling that we got just in terms of getting the word out about our game system and how that's not that people are against you. It's just, it's hard to get that word out in a way where you get enough people knowing about the games or the company or even the company. I mean, like when you say you've been around for a year and people are like, I've never heard of you. And you're like, yeah, we know. You gotta just chew that down and just say, well, what can I tell you about us today?
Welcome to my world.
Yeah.
You're not what? Wizards.
Yeah.
But how are you not wizard? It's the name of the show.
Yeah.
But why is your email address magic? We're not, because it's ironic. But why have I not? But it's a board game podcast. Yeah. Isn't there hundreds of them? No, I've checked on iTunes. There's about 3.
Yeah.
And you got that. So I know where it comes from. I think getting the word out when you are. Just from the beginning, and just kind of getting the first couple of people to kind of, I guess, champion you or follow you or be happy to kind of talk about your stuff.
Absolutely, and this is
really,
even
really
this even includes the network of people that I know that you'd think they would be like, oh yeah, I'll get the word out. But the reality is a lot of people at Games Workshop have thought they were going to go run a game company. Just like, and so like. There's always that, well, let's see what he does first before I put my name behind this. And I can't blame him, because there's been a lot of people who've started something and you're just like, what the heck is this guy doing? We hope we're not those people, and we think we're not, but it definitely has some moments where you're, even some people that you thought would jump all over this and support it. No one's going to support a game as much as the guy who creates it, period. Like,
oh no,
you'll
absolutely.
get some champions out there, but there's a guy who's going to put his heart and soul into it.
And they're the champions are fantastic.
There's always love my champions, and I got a few of them too. Thankfully.
Yeah, and they're just amazing people, and we have people that we, that they tweet the show out on Twitter. They always like your tweets that they've made. They're the guys that share. They're the guys that like the page on Facebook. We've got a little kind of, I guess, a kind of a non-wizarding. We need a word for the kind of, how people have like, the Rockets and stuff like that. Names of things that they have. You'd have the Interventioners. I don't know. You're fans, basically. And we don't have that. But there's guys out there, I mean, just as a quick shout out, there's a guy called Rory Summers who constantly just is really, really supportive to us. And I've never publicly said it. So thanks, Rory, for everything that you do. But you've probably got the same as well.
We've got a few.
John, you know.
We've got a few.
Yeah.
Steve Reismus in Chicago has been fantastic. We've got another guy in Calixico, California, Richard Sparks, who's been awesome. He's kind of talked a little bit about us. So I didn't realize I'd get a chance to mention their names in public. But thanks, guys.
It's your night. As I
And-
said, you could say whatever you want within reason.
Yeah. So, I mean, not to get too commercial, but we did just release the announcement for our latest ultra-modern war game called DEFCON Zero. It's 20
Okay.
millimeter focused. It takes a World War III approach, but not from the old Cold War. It takes it from just a few years in the future from today. Things have escalated. Things have gone hot. You can check out DEFCON Zero at covertinterventiongames.com. You'll see all the factions that we've already got in the works, and you can see a little taste of the background and story that should leave you wanting more if we've done it right.
So how many? I mean, what size? How many kind of miniatures are you going to have in a normal game with something like that?
Well,
how many?
we haven't decided exactly what a normal game is, but we're hoping to be about a platoon size engagement.
What about an abnormal game then?
Abnormal game, an abnormally large game would probably be about a company plus size element. So a company.
And
with
how
a
many?
couple of
How many is
extras.
that for our?
That'd be
I
about
guess not.
120 to 140 models, miniatures on the table.
That's
Less if you
yeah.
go with a mechanized group, because some of the extra squads get removed and replaced with armored vehicles. But
Right,
the overall factor is some amazing stuff with tanks and APCs and stuff. The average game is about 40 to 50 models if you're going big.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. What kind of do you want to tell us a little bit about the system for it, how it kind of works? I mean, one of the things we like to do on the show is we never like to assume that people know. Well, people normally don't know what I'm talking about anyway. I mean, I accept that. That's not just for the podcast. That's my life.
Mm-hmm.
But
Absolutely.
but sometimes we don't want people to say, we don't want to assume that people have played Catan, for instance.
Oh yeah,
so,
yeah.
So sometimes you just like to see, you want to maybe explain, go a little bit more into the mechanics, maybe just give a rough idea of what people would expect, because people will go to they go to the local games club where I go, and they would see the kind of the skirmish games kind of going on, and they'll see they'll see things like bolt action and stuff like that going on, but they've never been tempted to jump in because they're not sure of what the mechanics would be. So if they were playing DEFCON Zero, how would the game kind of work?
Well, I'm glad you asked. That's a very good question. We are still in beta, and we're releasing later in June. We're going to open up the closed beta. People will get an opportunity, not a guarantee, of being in closed beta if they're in the inner circle email registration list. They get a shot at that, and that is kind of a cool thing to be in. We'll throw a couple extra things to the people who help us out with that.
Mm-hmm.
They got to be serious gamers. They've got to actually be playing the game. So we'll have some filters for that too. But to address some basic big picture stuff with it, there's 3 phases. Yeah. But the main part of the game occurs in the action and reaction phases that go with our game. The initiative, unlike a lot of other games, will change hands potentially based on what you do. Mm-hmm. There's the biggest problem we've seen in a lot of games is that they have this scenario on the tabletop, and everybody knows what the scenario is. And so it's like everybody knows that that we need to capture this one building on the table. Everybody knows it, so everybody tools their forces up and tools their game up and places their forces accordingly. But that's not how real combat works. Mm-hmm. When you get into contact with somebody, you don't know what their mission and intent is, and they don't know what yours is either. And your job on the tactical tabletop is to figure out that mission and try to prevent them from accomplishing theirs while you still accomplish yours. So, we've created a system with mission cards and scenarios where the scenario and the missions are not necessarily one and the same. They're actually separate. And so there's 4 categories of missions that you get to play. There's offensive missions, defensive missions, enabling missions, and stability missions. And within those categories, there's multiple specific missions you can select from. So when you get to a scenario, which may be like around the bend, is the one we've been testing for the last couple of weeks. We even did a couple demos for some very nice folks at Little Wars recently.
Okay.
We let them see the tabletop, and we explained this is the scenario for the tabletop, and then we said you could pick missions from either of these two categories for both sides. And so now you've got players who may have an offensive mission, and the other guy either has an offensive mission or a defensive mission. And you don't necessarily know what that is unless they do something on the table that helps you get some kind of indicator. That being said, you still get your victory points if you accomplish your mission regardless of what your opponent does.
All right.
And your opponent still gets their victory points regardless of what you do.
Uh-huh.
Your goal is to try to do both, though.
So it's not just a straight, there's the bad guys, or there's the good guys, or there's the in-between guys, just go and wipe them out. There is a case that actually the job, it's almost like you got to tool up your team for the potentiality of what the other side are going to do, but at the same time you've got to maintain a strong squad to make sure you cover your own objective, essentially.
Just like in real life, you have to maintain a tactically flexible unit. So you can't. Your min-maxing will occur in any game. It's just going to happen. We know that will happen. This is one of those factors that if you attempt to do that, you're going to fail at a lot of missions if you min-max only towards one capability, one tactical choice, because it forces other people to both try to stop their opponent as well as accomplish their own mission, and you cannot do that if you're tooled up too much one way or another.
So are you looking at working towards a campaign? Then to what I mean is this going to be part of a campaign? Have you got the ability to play maybe a small kind of 4 or 5 mission campaign, and have you got views to having maybe ones that are 10, 15, 20 missions? I
am not at liberty to say. However, we have some capabilities. We definitely have some amazing
Denton.
Capabilities coming that is going to blow your mind. Stuff that, like, there is stuff in here. We talk to wargamers and we're like, well, what if you could do this? And they're like, I want to play that game. And we're like, this is going to be too easy. Yeah, it's got the bigger, it scales up well. So if you want to go to 12-foot long tables, 50-foot long tables, you can do that at a big convention and you still have an amazing game. So all our scales are match real life. So if this tank can shoot 4,000 meters in real life, then the tank can shoot 4,000 meters on the table. Not 4,000 actual meters, but 4,000 scaled down meters. That would be amazing if a little tank could do that. But
where are you going? I'm going down the shops to get some milk.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm shooting you from here.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
You better run.
Exactly.
But you're not telling me things. I feel like I was getting towards being able to call you Reid. I feel that I've slipped back to only being able to call you John, and even potentially into the Mr. Denton.
Don't
just shut me down.
Don't kill me. Don't kill me. So, from a mechanics perspective, though, there is definitely your ability to move and shoot can be done at any point. So you can move and shoot. You can shoot and move. You can move a little, shoot, move a little more. Overwatch is capable. You're rewarded for actual tactical gameplay for the use of cover and concealment, and your opponent, and you're also rewarded for having covering fire and suppressive fire against your enemies. So the impact is an actual in-game impact to your opponent's ability to fire on you when you suppress them, and that is how you engage your foes in real life. So we've seen some benefits of that. However, what we also know is just like in real life, some of these firefights can be quick and brutal. So if you set your guys up right, your infantry up right, and they're in position, and they're able to light up the enemy with concentrated fire very quickly, you can brutally win a game in a very short period of time after that first engagement.
So do you get? I mean, in terms of the mechanics, is it kind of like you attack with a certain number of dice and the defenders defend, kind of thing, or is it a case that I'm attacking you and you just have to take the attack that I'm taking?
No. No. You don't just have to take it. As a matter of fact, if you set it up right, theoretically your opponent can interrupt your move and attempt to fire first. And at that point it comes down to what we call the capability of the forces. So we have what are called capability ratings. And the higher your capability rating, the more likely you are to achieve the goals you want as opposed to your opponent. So what typically winds up happening is higher trained Western armies versus lower trained not Western armies. There tends to be a little bit asymmetric size difference, which is how it is in real life as well. So you'll find that your American forces will tend to be smaller than your Middle Eastern counterparts, or even lower-ended conscripted Russians, for example. Okay. You'll have a lot more of them on the table versus the Americans, or the British, or whoever it is you want, the UK forces. Yeah. So we found that the mechanic overall has been very effective at showing what real combat can be, but we added that layer of gamification where your commander can help make sure your troops hold the line at that critical juncture, and some of those factors that makes it a little, just a hair gamey, that make that because it would be very, very not fun if the Abrams tank smokes everything in turn one and they call it a day.
Exactly. You spent half an hour setting everything up, and then it's just like,
and then
boom.
Like 10 seconds later, it's Miller time. You can't do that.
Bye.
So, yeah. So we do have some key components for that. It's been pretty solid for us so far.
Is there still a lot of reliance on dice?
Yeah, we definitely have dice. Yeah. The dice, though, are stacked to the statistical ability of those units. So, the higher you may have a D8 for a modern U.S. force that's well trained against the D6 of a lower-ended force. And that is the shooting versus moving. And then body armor comes into play. Cover and concealment comes into play. Thermal imagers could come into play potentially. We have rules for accidental fires being set and then purposefully setting fires because it happens. Your average tracer round does have some incendiary effects potentially. So.
Okay. Would you ever consider moving away from kind of dice altogether, or do you think it's still an important part?
Well, the dice are there to create a statistical weight and advantage, but just like in real combat, not everything goes the way you intend, and so there has to be an element of things going wrong, and it does happen. You think you're going to hit those guys, but you miss. You stack the averages up so that you do a lot more with groups of teams of people than individuals.
Okay.
If you could show me a system that does it better than dice, I would be happy to use that. Card systems are just way too random. It's like the double orange in Candyland, We're not really happy with the effects that can have, and then it creates one more crazy thing on the table, whereas most people have plenty of dice laying around.
Yeah.
So we think that the user adoption rate actually goes up when you have a mechanic that creates the same effect, but also reduces the load on them for having to pick up yet one more crazy thing.
Yeah, I've seen it. I mean, I've seen kind of hybrid kind of difference between, like, say, the use of cards and the use of dice, but usually the use of cards would be on the enemy kind of AI side.
Oh yeah, solitaire games. Yeah.
Well, even I think the new Dark Souls game that's out, the enemies themselves don't roll dice at all. If you're defending against them, they always attack. They always have an attack value of, say, like a 4, and you have got to defend. You take your armor into account, and you roll number of dice based on your armor, and that's kind of thing, and that kind of works kind of well, because there's a standard that the enemy is always going to try and hit you at, and then the luck side of things comes into your kind of preparation, which is always the kind of the consideration. I mean, you're talking modern. Obviously modern and slightly moderner warfare. Is that the only genre that you guys are tackling? Are you going into anything else at all?
Yeah, we absolutely are. We have modern sci-fi in a couple.
Are you going to tell me about it?
I would love to. I would love to tell you about it. Arc Shadow Wars is our modern sci-fi game that we're also in development with. It shares some base mechanics with DEFCON 0, for example. That is, it's funny we were mentioning cards, because that is actually something we are looking at, some mechanics that will use cards. for some of what we call our psych magics. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming with that. We like to joke that is a combination of True Lies, Warehouse 13, and Men in Black, and the X-Files all rolled into one. So there's a lot of cool stuff in there, a lot of cool factions in development. We've already got some miniatures already put out for it, just because like we had them and we said, well, why should we wait to put these out? People want these miniatures for everything. Yeah. So we've got our undercover agents, which have been really hot. Those were actually sculpted originally by Bob Naismith. He's the guy who's done a lot of stuff for some other companies, including Games Workshop. Our SWAT team is pretty doggone good looking, and we got zombies, but we have a ton more stuff coming in the next few months for it that is just going to rock your worlds. The most exciting thing about it is that it shares some of that realistic weapons ranges, but it gives us the open-endedness to create our own vehicles, weapon systems, and some other crazy stuff. We've got some interesting stuff going on with drones that I think is going to be exciting to some players here soon too. It's just been.
Have they brought them in? Because I've not. I don't think I've seen. I've seen kind of, you get obviously flying creatures in the fantasy kind of games, but I don't think I've ever seen kind of drone technology kind of used before.
There's a very limited what drones can do even today, and still reflect on the tabletop. It's so we've looked at what's near horizon and coming out. We have drones for both games, of course, but we really have some really funny stuff going on with Ark Shadow Wars. The zombies there in Ark Shadow Wars are a faction. It is not a zombie game. A lot of people have thought we're making yet another zombie game. And like there isn't enough of those right now.
It's right up there with board game podcasts.
Exactly. Zombies are just one of many factions that are coming, and if you go to our website, and you punch in Ark Shadow Wars, I think right there on the homepage you'll see right there Ark Shadow Wars. You click on that and just click on Ark Shadow Wars. Don't drop down for the products. You'll see a quick background and description that talks about how the world is this adjacent conspiracy that's running alongside everything that we're doing. And so we make jokes about some of the conspiracies out there because they're just too ridiculous even for our game. And then we take some of those conspiracies that people have come up with and we turn them into either factions, forces, scenarios, or funny stuff. And the funniest thing so far is about how our zombies, once the virus takes over their brain, they then have this incredible rewiring of their brains that forces them to seek out things that are warm that they can eat. They have this hunger, this uncanny hunger to eat them, which has resulted in some cases of them chasing humans down the street, of course, and dogs and anything else they can get their hands on. But it's also resulted in the occasional zombie attempting to eat a space heater. So there's definitely some comedy that we try to sprinkle into some of our stuff too, because we like to have fun, and who doesn't want to have some fun at the game table too? Is there? Because if you've played games, you've joked with your buddies as you're going along with what's really going on at the table. If you haven't, then you're probably either way.
Yeah, there are the kind of the serious kind of oh, you sunk my battleship.
Yeah,
it's like no, but I was you're playing battleships. Come on, this is a board game club.
Yeah,
kind of thing. But there are people that take it very, very seriously, and they're completely entitled to do that.
Absolutely.
At the same time, there is nothing funnier than having a good laugh over something that comes up, which just looks absolutely ridiculous.
If you can convince your opponent's zombies to walk right off that roof to chase whatever's out there, and they fall to their death, that's a perfectly good tactical option.
That's legitimate.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's in the handbook. I mean, I think that I think that's in the. I think there's a Zombieland handbook with these rules, and I think that's Rule 47.
Yeah.
Try and get your zombies to walk off a high building.
That's right. And then, I think rule number 1 is cardio. It still is. But
it still is. Rule number 2 is a double tap, isn't it?
Yeah. And then when you get into the Mad Scientist organization, which is, we're just starting to put that together. We just got our Mad Scientist Masters in recently. And that's going to have your typical different variations of the mad scientist from the old pulps novels brought into the modern era. So there's like Dr. Death or Mrs. Evil or whatever you want to call them. And then when we create giant hedgehogs with lasers that work for them, because they create mutants and all sorts of other crazy stuff.
You have to do that.
Yeah, we're working on it. Giant hedgehogs do not make themselves very easy, especially when you're trying to install the lasers in their skulls. They really fight you. So we've been working.
Yeah,
on
but
that.
you can imagine just that.
Yeah.
Just imagine. Grimslingers, when Stephen S. Gibson was on, he has a character which is a red panda.
Mm-hmm.
A red panda.
I love that.
That's all you need in a game. Yeah, exactly. Everybody loves red pandas, but this red panda's badass. Yeah. If you had hedgehogs with lasers,
oh yeah,
that's a winner. That's a winner.
Well, and giant nuclear irradiated spiders. We also have, because every mad scientist group has their minions, right? So we have right now we've created terrorist minions. We're going to have a few different types of minions that they're going to run around for them. They're not always the brightest guys, but they'll follow them to their deaths. So we've got minions. You got to have them. And then we've got other factions coming on down the line. When you see our aliens, our various different aliens, you're either going to laugh, you're going to cry, or you're going to say spot on, man, and try to give us a high five from there.
Is it difficult when you're doing the aliens not to fall into the kind of the normal kind of tropes that you see for aliens? It's like the big head, the big eyes, or the one that looks like the kind of the alien, or the one that looks like the big huge bruiser. Is it difficult to kind of come up with a design for an alien with, especially if you've had your little bit of gene stealer kind of
I've got
love and stuff like that.
I kind of have an addiction to purple and blue. That's true. The thing I'll tell you is, we will take from the best of everything. So, do we have an alien race that looks like the prototypical alien race? Yes, because people want them. However, the background for those particular aliens, I can't say much, but I can tell you they're hysterical. They're not what you think at first. They're actually just little sleazeballs is what they are, but that's another story altogether. Okay. I mean, let's face it. How many times can aliens probe a person and find out what they need? But they keep doing it. Well, why do they keep doing it? Because they like it. So, and then we've got other ones that are not in your typical alien trope, but they're very much a high sci-fi capable, thought out group of stuff, and some what if scenarios if some things moved forward the way they could.
So will they follow the base mechanics that say like DEFCON 0 follow? I mean, if you're playing DEFCON 0 system, is it quite easy for you to go and play ARC, or is there changed mechanics in it?
There's very similar mechanics in the base layers. Once you get to the advanced stuff, there's definitely some differences. One of the reasons that ARC Shadow Wars is going to take a little bit longer is because it has just a few more layers to it that we have to install for the sci-fi stuff.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that if we get it wrong, it'll break the game. So we have to go a little slower with that stuff, and get that knocked out. But once that's done, it's going to be a flagship kind of game for us, we think.
Cool.
And then you mentioned one other thing. We got really lucky a couple weeks ago. We were approached by the maker of a game called Biosyndrome.
Yes.
And we excitedly took a look through it, and we agreed to take over that game system and the support for it, and doing a heck of a lot more to help support it further. And we've worked with the original creator of the game. We worked with a couple of his top people who've really been the champions of that game in the past, and we're still working with them even now. We excitedly are putting some stuff together, and we're going to give it away for free. Just the same way that that the guy who created this, the maker, originally anticipated. He had a successful Kickstarter a few years ago, and we're just exactly the opportunity he was looking for to give the game some stronger life and stronger legs, and he was our opportunity to showcase a game that also use our miniatures. For the people that are in our inner circle email list, they get the game sent to them for free. They'll get the links to it and everything else. In the meantime, they can go to Facebook and look up Biosyndrome, or Facebook and look up Covert Intervention Games and ask us about it, and we will direct them towards that stuff and get them set.
And all this good stuff will be put into the show notes.
Oh, thanks.
As well.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. That goes without question. Have you got anything else on the boil? Anything else simmering away?
I've got probably 6,000 new miniature sculpts that we've got to get molded. and that's what's really on the boil is just getting the miniatures out there.
Oh dear.
And then we've got a number of tanks that we're working. We're just trying to make sure that our production chain for tanks hits the quality threshold. But once that happens, and once we figure out what that system needs to look like to create, a new tank, get it through, get it through prototyping, get it through production, then start producing, and then let people know about it. What that process looks like, the faster and faster we can do this. And we're really excited about the opportunity to make that happen. Tanks combined with a 20 millimeter offering from the same company is almost a new thing.
All right, okay, that is cool then.
So they'll people can of course play with anything they've already got. Some people like Hot Wheels and Matchbox cars. I've got a few out here right now that I'm working with because I don't even have trucks of my own. So it's been a joy. The other thing is we're working on a scenery line too. I mean, that's the holy grail once we can do all that. If we can get the matching scenery, we've already got stuff in the works. It's just a matter of how fast can we produce it at the quality level that it has to be at. So
yeah. So are you looking, because a lot of the stuff that you do is lead. So with 3D printing and things like that, obviously 3D printing is kind of always up in the air with regards to the kind of the quality that you'll get. You'll always get a reasonable size quality that might need some additional work done. But are you going down the resin route, the plastic route, other routes as well?
For our vehicles and scenery, everything will probably start off with resin.
Okay.
If we get big enough, fingers crossed, we can actually do that and service enough hobbyists who are excited about what we're doing. Then we'll look at transitioning into plastic first thing and make everybody even happier. It's just a matter of, do we have the threshold to do it and do it right and not overextend ourselves. Everybody wants plastic tanks. Plastic tanks rock. You can do all sorts of cool things with the inside of a plastic tank.
Absolutely. But the machinery and stuff like that to actually get you in the position to be able to do your own molding and stuff like that, that costs an awful lot of money to get that kind of set up.
Well, we've done a pretty good job getting ourselves into position so far. We've got access, if we don't own it outright, to some of the most high detailed prototyping equipment out there. We have a lot of friends who do this kind of stuff for a living in other industries that love what we're doing and are excited about it. It's just been a real... I'd have to say that if it wasn't for my network of good people and friends that are kind of supportive, and we're supportive of them in other ways too, I don't know that we would have been this far along. And so the miniatures, the models that we have forthcoming, it's all because of a bunch of great people coming together and excitedly helping us create something. We get asked all the time, will we do pre-painted miniatures and stuff like that, and we're just not going to do that. It's not been successful in either getting the product out fast enough, or it's atrophying the hobby, and we're just not interested in that.
It's the other side of it as well, is there is kind of there's people that like to have something that they can do themselves. There was the recent campaign by Weta for giant killer robots, and the main pledge, everything was pre-painted, but they had an additional pledge which costs, I think it was something like $150 you could get it for, and it was unpainted. And they were like, well, this is fine, but we go through a production process, and if you want us to stop our production process before we sit down and do the painting, then you're going to cost you kind of more money if you just want the miniatures kind of by themselves. So that's, I think people want to put their stamp on stuff. There's a lot of guys I see at the club that kind of customize stuff a little bit. They kind of make it their own. There's obviously just the kind of the painting stuff itself. Do you paint? Are you gonna, do you get time at all to kind of, do you get time to enjoy the hobby still? Have you still got firmly the kind of the business head now on, or do you get time to kind of to play yourself anymore?
I would say I have the business hat on more than I don't. The toughest thing for me is when you're sitting down to hobby, you always wonder, is there something else I should be doing to make my company more known around the hobby community? And that's the toughest thing is you're always thinking right now, I'm not big enough yet. I'm not big enough yet. At the same time, if I ever lose the passion for the hobby, I'm a dead man in this game, because you've got to be excited about miniatures somehow. And if you come off as like, oh God, not another miniature, you're just never going to make it. You're never going to make it. You might as well just fold up right there, man. It's just, so no, I have, right in front of me, probably 2 platoons of different forces for forthcoming lines and ranges that we're producing that I've still got to paint up. Every Thursday, we do additional all-volunteer testing for games and stuff. But typically once a month, we have what we call Hobby Knot, and that is our night that we just sit down and we paint. Now, sometimes that's stuff we paint for our company, and sometimes we've had people come in and bring their own miniatures from other companies' stuff and do that. Yeah. We don't talk about that because we're okay with people seeing other people's miniature companies on the side, just not while they're in our possession. But I can't stop people from doing great things with their hobbies. So we definitely want to encourage that. And the things they take from that immediately, can be applied to our miniatures as well. So we're totally okay with that. So about once a month, we definitely have an all hands, hobby day for themselves. And then we also, I still paint pretty much at least 2 to 3 days a week for all sorts of stuff. I've been lucky. I've had people who actually know what they're doing teach me some things about painting, and I've tried to follow it.
See, it's not just like do the dark wash, and then get white, and then do highlights.
What do you
on everything?
What are you currently using for painting yourself, Richard?
I don't. This is the thing. I used to, and
Richard,
I'd like to get back into it.
Richard, you can start referring to me as Mr. Denton again.
Oh.
I'm sorry. No.
Oh dear!
I mean,
I can't believe
there's so much talent in your backyard where you're at that would love to help you learn how to paint. There's a lot of talent here too, but the European talent and collected talent out there is just off the charts.
Yeah.
Yeah, people sign up and fill up every class from some of these European masters when they come out here for the various different conventions and stuff like that within seconds. When they find out a class is open, everybody's trying to get in that class, and they're right there.
Mr. Denton, I am quite old now.
Richard,
my hand shakes.
Richard,
do you know?
Richard, a little alcohol will solve everything for you.
I don't. No, because then I would end up just going around. I end up going around painting mustaches and everything.
Okay.
I have an entire old squad of Tyranids and Gene Stealers and Chaos Marines that all look wonderful because they're painted pristine, but every single one of them has a little black curly mustache because they're all evil, and that's what evil people have, is little black curly mustaches. And every single one of them without fail. I am not, do you know what, I draw and I paint, but it's on flat things that can't move. It's on flat things that, that I can focus on. I need glasses now. So, me trying to look at something which is very small and paint it at the same time, I'm probably more likely to end up painting my hand. That is the truth. You know what I mean?
Well,
I'm going to end up with a lovely Blood Angel emblem on my thumb 9 times out of 10, Mr. Denton.
Oh my gosh.
I can't do it. I can't, seriously. If you give me a flat canvas and you ask me to draw, if you said, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to draw, bright coloured explosion, impact of something, draw me a couple of people kind of running away. I can do all that for you. Just don't ask me to do it in 3D form, because then it would end up looking like, like I was trying to, like it was a Calvin and Hobbes kind of cartoon, and Calvin had just got overzealous with the red and blue paint. This is, that's the kind of thing that I'm
Richard,
I would just be wasting people's time.
There's definitely some therapy that we can get you through. I used to have to spend, I don't know how many hours per day teaching 10 and 12-year-olds how to paint at Games Workshop. If I can teach a 10 and 12-year-old, I can teach you.
I think I need to be in the 8-year-old class. I mean, this is how, this is where we, brush.
Hey, man, we can do that. We can work you up.
Okay, well, that's
We'll make some Richard special tutorials on how to paint mustaches on some of our gangsters, because we've got a great World War II line as well, but we've got some gangsters and pulp stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't even talk about the gangsters. Now everybody's going to be on board.
Oh yeah. Well, you got to leave some mystery out there. So.
You have to, because otherwise there's no point in having something like a website.
Yeah.
Where
people
can just go on. Just people can just go on and find. Yeah. I will tell you what, right? I will, and I promised this time last year, I think I promised that I would play Magic the Gathering, and I did, and I played about 4 games, and it's still rubbish.
Yeah, that podcast was actually pretty hysterical.
Well,
yeah, I remember.
I promise this time, okay, thank you very much for that, Mr. Denton. I will promise by this time, okay, give me 6 months, okay, I will buy, or I will go into my old collection, and I will paint a figure, and I will put it on display on the website and across social media. 6 months, so it is the beginning of May.
Richard.
So by this time in November, it will be ready and painted and pristine.
Oh, Richard, I'm gonna one up you.
What's that?
I'm gonna send you some minis.
No.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna send you a small little pack of minis. You can ruin them when you get done with those. Let me know. I'll send you another pack, and then you can do those right.
Okay,
now,
that's fine.
I'm pretty sure that there's some people up there that can help you.
I'm pretty sure.
You know,
there's a whole crew at Dwarf that will help me out.
Oh, exactly.
I'm sure. There you go. Well, everything will be fine.
The only thing is, if you do a podcast about it, you can't do the wizard voice for that podcast.
I don't know. I think that'd be cool. I'd have to do like a Bob Ross.
And here we're painting happy mustaches. Happy mustaches. Exactly. Right. Got it.
I'm just gonna put this. I'm just gonna put this blue here. I'm gonna take my brush and I'm just gonna dry brush this. And he's a happy little Tyranid, isn't he? He's happy, happy man.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do that.
Yeah.
Do an entire thing.
Happy terrorists. We'll have happy terrorists for you. No problem. See, look, he's happy.
Yeah.
He's happy. He has no idea what he's about to walk into, but he's happy. Yeah.
Where can people find you on the internet webs?
We are easily
Mr.
found
Denton.
at www.covertintervention.com. No spaces, no underscores.
Okay.
If you punch in Covert Intervention Games, if you do a search for DEFCON 0, if you do a search for Arc Shadow War, chances are you'll find us on the web, on Facebook, or on Twitter and Instagram. We're fairly easily found.
And we, of course, will be putting all of this in the show notes so that we have notes to show.
Absolutely.
It's been entertaining and educational.
Richard, it's been outstanding. And like I said, we're just a plucky little game company that's starting out and figuring out all these things that we thought we knew that we didn't. If you want to talk again, I would love to tell you, hey, look, we figured out all this other stuff that we didn't really know that we didn't know.
You have to come back, because when you come back on, you become a repeat offender.
Oh.
Just like Brian Wade did.
Yeah, but I'm not doing a wizard voice. It's just not going to happen.
No, you can do any. I don't know. I think we could do any type of voice. We could. I'll tell you what. You could pretend to be Scottish, and I could pretend to be from Arkansas.
Lad, I don't think he'd like that very much. I just haven't drank that much ever. Not ever. It's not going to happen.
Nobody goes automatically, we're not a nation of alcohol.
Yes, you are. Hey, let's create golf. Hey, let's go live in the foggy lands, because it's a great idea. No. Hey, let's make haggis. Let's make haggis.
Oh my goodness, you sound like Shrek now, Mr. Denton.
I do. I'm terrible. I didn't say I'd do a good job of it.
No. You just stay right there, son. We're gonna have words with you later on.
Oh,
this isn't gonna be pretty at all. I'm telling you that just now. Anyway, so we will put all this. See, this is the thing. Every single episode, the last 2 minutes, it just descends into chaos. I don't know what is going on with you people.
It's because we're having a good time.
There you go. Now, if you We're going to put all this stuff in the show notes so we have notes to show. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, and God bless you for doing that. You can find us on Twitter at We're Not Wizards. We're on Facebook at We're Not Wizards. We are on Instagram at We're Not Wizards. You can search us, and new episodes are going up on YouTube automatically now, thanks to Podbean, because they've been delicious in doing stuff like that for us. You can find us on iTunes. You just search for We're Not Wizards or We're Not Wizards Gaming Tabletop Podcast, and you will find us. If you like what you've heard tonight, then just give us a rating. I mean, apparently that does wonderful things for us. Now remember, don't give us a 10, because that makes us big-headed. But don't give us a 1, because that makes us cry. Just go in the middle, like a 5, because it's, average. And we are, very, very average. Well, I have been average, but Mr. John Reid Denton, however, has been absolutely fantastic. There are only 2 things left to do. First of all, thank you very much for coming on. It's been a lot of good fun.
You've made it easy for me. Thank you.
No, I just, we just had a chat, which is it's always good fun when that happens. But there are just 2 things to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards.
We're definitely not wizards.
We're definitely not wizards, Reid. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it is a goodbye from, as I say, the very, very informative and just very interesting, all-round, wonderful man that is Mr. Denton.
I think you just gave me a 10 rating. What was that?
There you go.
Yeah.
So say goodbye, John.
Goodbye, John.
And it's a goodbye from me. Stay safe. Roll 6s. Check out Covert Intervention, and we'll put links, lots of links in the show. Remember, it's not just about your strategy, it's also about your tactics. Or something like that. I don't know if you even got that right.
That sounded very deep.
It did. It did sound very, very deep, and that's not like me. But until next time, goodbye.